It's been a while since we've had a true flagship killer, and I think this smartphone just might be it. Introducing the Nothing 3A Pro in black. Getting into the box is rather interesting. I imagine the sleeve is supposed to come off easier than this, but I'm gonna be honest, there's nothing super satisfying about this particular unboxing experience until you finally get to the nothing that's inside. I'm a huge fan of transparent devices. Also in the box, we have a long white USB-C cable, as well as the classically clear Nothing SIM card removal tool. Not quite as glitzy as the gold-plated Red Magic SIM ejector, but definitely a good-looking close second. Nothing has dropped two phones at the same time this year, the 3A Pro on the left and the regular blue 3A on the right. Both nearly identical in build quality and hardware, just different cameras, and camera placements, and of course, a different price. The 3A Pro is an extremely reasonable $459, and the regular 3A is an even more extremely reasonabler $379. A sub $400 smartphone in this economy is truly a treasure. I hope it survives. Since both phones have the same size and physical build, minus the camera bump, I'll be focusing most of my attention on the black Nothing 3A Pro, which has a substantial raised ring in the center to contain the massive periscope camera. For reference, this hump is about the height of two car keys, exactly 3/4, or if you're outside the USA, there's a really nifty trick you can do at the back end of a set of calipers that reveal the exact dimension of 5mm. The less expensive 3A has a more reasonabler gradient on its own linear triple camera setup instead of the massive plateau. When it comes to the front of the phone, however, instead of Gorilla Glass this time around, we have something called Panda Glass, which appears to be a more budget-friendly alternative to Gorilla Glass, and is made in China. A Panda seems way more cuddly than a Gorilla, but that's besides the point. It's still chemically strengthened like Gorilla Glass, and while I can't speak to Panda's impact resistance, its scratch resistance levels are what we would expect on a flagship, with scratches at a level 6 and deeper grooves at a level 7. The same glass covering the screen also covers the 50-megapixel front-facing selfie camera and razor-thin earpiece slit. It's on the side of the phone where we finally find out how Nothing managed to make this Nothing so inexpensive. Plastic, which to be honest I'm totally fine with. Single-use plastics need to be banned off the face of the earth, of course, but plastic on a phone that has 6 years worth of security updates? Sign me up. The polished Essential key is made from metal, along with the metal power button. A plastic frame just makes a lot of sense. There are no antenna lines, and honestly, I didn't even realize it was plastic when I first grabbed it. The individual volume buttons are both made from metal, and the bottom of the phone with its lower loudspeaker and 50-watt USB-C port is also plastic. However, this year we do have an official IP64 rating, as we see with the rubber ring around the edge of the dual SIM card tray. IP64 means we have protection against rain or mist, but submerging your Nothing is still a bad idea. Nothing has upgraded the back panel to glass this year, which is nicely scratch resistant. The plateau as well is topped with a single circle of glass, protecting each of the camera units. The top left camera is the 8-megapixel ultra-wide, the 50-megapixel main camera is on the bottom left, the 50-megapixel periscope telephoto camera is the big boy in the center, and the single LED flash is up top, with the large ring around all three cameras being made from metal. It appears the only real compromise, if it can even be called that, is using plastic on the frame. Since the screen on both phones is still a massive 6.7-inch 10-bit 3000 nit 120Hz 1080p AMOLED, which survives for about 20 seconds under the heat from my lighter without any permanent visible blemish. It has, of course, evaporated the oleophobic coating, so don't try this at home. You'll be surprised at how many moms get mad at me for that one. I am a professional, however, so feel free to leave the testing to me. Both phones do have an under-display optical fingerprint scanner, which when slathered with level 7 deeper grooves is still able to read my fingerprint and unlock the phone every single time, so thumbs up for that. Finally, the bin test. Being plastic, I thought that we would at least get some delightful destruction, or some blissful bending, or maybe an educational experience, but for some reason, probably due to the ultra-rigid glass on both sides, which is embedded into the plastic lips of the frame, we don't get any movement. No cracking, no creaking, and no catastrophic carnage. Even the less expensive regular 3A, which is built in the exact same way with glass on the back, survives just fine when bent from both the front and the back. Glass is indeed helpful for that rigid structure, but as we know, glass is glass, so keep that in mind as drops are still going to be an issue. Like I said earlier, the main difference between the two phones are the camera units, so I vote that we see what that periscope camera looks like from the inside, which means the back glass needs to come off. I'll warm it up until it's barely too hot to touch, and slide my razor blade between the glass and the plastic frame. I did that, obviously, as an example of what not to do, since the adhesive was obviously not fully soft enough to start pulling on. Anyway, with the adhesive now fully sliced away, it's cool seeing the camera units basically already exposed. The camera housing comes away with the tinted back glass. I thought it was kind of interesting here that the directional microphone on the back glass has its own waterproofing mesh over the whole opening. This microphone is used for ambient noise reduction during phone calls and picking up better audio during video recordings. We also have 2 gold contact pads for the LED flash. The glyph interface, which I forgot to show you earlier, is still attached to the phone body. If the 3A Pro survives the teardown, I'll have to show you what that looks like when it turns back on. Which reminds me, I should probably turn it off first. Now, here's where we have to be a little more careful. There are 9 visible T5 screws which need to be removed, but there are also some hidden Phillips head screws just waiting to mess everything up. If you lift up some of the decorative embellishments, you can find most of the screws. These embellishments are designed to mimic the large ribbon cables that traverse the space between the motherboard and the charging port board. There are 3 more Phillips head screws on the bottom and 7 Phillips head screws at the top, one of which is hidden extremely well, and I didn't end up finding that last hidden location until it was too late. But now we all know where it all is, and I'm happy to take one for the team. The battery comes out easy enough, nice work nothing, big fan of that. Every smartphone needs to be recycled eventually, and it's nice to plan for the future. Making that 5,000 mAh battery easy to take out makes future material separation and recycling easier. With the battery gone, we get a look at what the real ribbon cables actually look like. The 2 long ribbons sit right on top of the vapor chamber. The lower 50-watt charging port board can come out, and Nothing's loudspeaker, which has its waterproofing mesh over the opening, as well as has balls inside. A $460 smartphone with balls inside is a pretty solid deal. To get access to that 50-megapixel telephoto camera, I'll unplug the longer ribbon cables that connect to the motherboard, just like little Legos. There are 2 more small Phillips head screws holding on the motherboard, one at 3 o'clock and the other up around 10 o'clock. Then the motherboard can ungoopify itself from the aluminum midframe. Apparently, this aluminum midframe is made from 100% recycled material, and is probably what helped the phone stay in one piece during the bin test. There is an extraordinary amount of thermal paste up in here. Down at the bottom of the frame, we have a super small square vibrator motor, the optical fingerprint scanner, and more waterproofing mesh over the loudspeaker opening. Grabbing the motherboard with its camera still attached, remember these upgraded camera units are the main difference between the 3A and the 3A Pro. Up top is the 8-megapixel ultra-wide camera with no OIS. Then we have the 50-megapixel main camera, which does have OIS, and the 50-megapixel telephoto with internal OIS. Normally I like to keep these cameras in one piece, but considering I'm bored today and we already broke the back glass, let's dive a bit deeper than usual. A zoom lens or zoom camera requires a bit of extra distance between the lens and the camera sensor. The longer the lens, the longer you can zoom. Instead of nothing making the phone over an inch thick in just one spot, which would be kind of funny actually, they decided to extend the sensor out horizontally and use a prism or mirror to redirect the light into the sensor. This isn't new, obviously, it's just new for nothing. The inner portion of the lens rides on magnets to focus the image, and just like on the main sensors that are flat, these electromagnets can also provide internal optical image stabilization. You can see how the prism, which can be seen from the camera bump, is taking the image and throwing it horizontally to the sensor that I shattered a few seconds ago. Honestly, I think it's a pretty cool setup, and I think Nothing is on the right track here with the inexpensive line of flagship phones. The Nothing 3A Pro can accomplish 90% of what a flagship 3 times its price can accomplish, and the plastic frame does not bother me in the slightest. A plastic back also wouldn't bother me, but I do see the benefit of glass, and a heavier phone just feels more premium, even if that's all in my head. I did say I would show off the glyph interface, and lucky for us, the phone is still fully functional. Nice work myself. I specifically didn't mention a giveaway at the beginning of this video, so it would be just for those who make it to the end. I'll pick 3 random people in the comments who tell me their favorite ice cream or dessert, and they'll receive one of my remaining Nothing 3As, or the one unopened Nothing 3A Pro. Hit that subscribe button, and as always, thanks a ton for watching. I'll see you around.